Hi, this is Brad Willingham. This is for Edu528. This is my final budget. I'm going to go through all the different sports and indicate what was taken off the budget to come up with a balanced budget for the school year. I'm going to start with football. Um, Football will be given in this instance at our school district, and I basically did my whole budget as if I was doing it here at my own school district here in Eldon. Many of these sports that we have, we really don't have here at Eldon. We have 14 different sports, and many of the sports that I had in the budget we don't even have here. So several of them I'm putting down as a budget as if they're a brand new sport to our school district. So start off with football. I gave football probably the highest allotment of the money simply because they consistently draw in more revenue each year, and even when we have multiple losing seasons, we still keep our crowd, and our crowd size doesn't get smaller. They were given a total of $12,929. And they weren't given everything on their list, but they primarily got new jerseys and pants because those are used for the next 2 to 3 years. So that kind of purchase won't occur every year. Also, football is probably the most expensive of fun because the equipment needs to be replaced often, and they need to be replaced because of safety reasons. And there are sometimes twice as many players on a football team than what other sports we have here in our school district. The next one I went to was wrestling. In fact, I gave back to football though. I gave them $12,929. Wrestling, they got $2,574. Many of the items that are on there won't need to be purchased because most of the items, like the mats, are fairly new. We just started wrestling here about 5 years ago, so most of our stuff's pretty new. The warm-ups are still in good enough condition and can last probably about one more season. And the singlets need to be replaced about every year or two because they do wear out pretty quickly. And I allocated 5 new headgear we purchase every year to replace any that are defective over the last couple of years. On to volleyball, boys volleyball. We do not have boys volleyball here at Eldon, but I acted like we did. Most of everything on here wasn't very expensive and was within the allotted budget of around $4,000 to $5,000. I was able to spend about $4,000 to $5,000 for every one of our sports, mainly because I took out marching, because the marching here is based on the band has their own budget, so that they were asking for over $8,000, and that gave me $8,000 to put into everything else. So most of these sports, if they have asking around $4,000 to $5,000, I was able to, a lot of them, just give whatever they wanted if it wasn't anything too extravagant. Boys volleyball basically got everything they wanted to a total of about $5,000. Next is girls tennis. They didn't ask for too much, so I gave them, only came to $291. Basically because a lot of the stuff, their biggest expenditure was a sports tennis ball machine, and since we had boys tennis as well, it was like a double purchase. So those are one of the two sports that are going to use some of the same things together. Baseball, they got $3,550. Definitely the balls need to be purchased each year. Game balls, practice balls, about every 2 to 3 years. Bats are very expensive, so I only let them have 2. They wanted to have 4, I believe. 3 at $300 a pop. So I figured if 2 would be good, and after about 4 or 5 years, we'd have a pretty good selection of bats. And also, a lot of kids that play baseball have already purchased their own bat and don't even use the schools. So this is an item. The hats, those need to be replaced every year because they get pretty nasty, and you don't want to be wearing somebody else's hat. And there's no way to clean them properly either. Catcher's mitts and catcher's gear was bought just about 2 years ago here in Eldon, so it didn't need to be replaced. And that, if it was, it needs to be done every 3 to 4 years. The pitching machine is relatively inexpensive that they had on here, so I went ahead and let them have it to a total of $35.50. Boys tennis, talked about that. They're sharing a lot of their costs with the girls tennis, but like I said, most of the purchase went to the boys, and a lot of the stuff that went to them is going to be used also by the girls. So they were asking $7,428. I allocated $4,401, and it was primarily a lot of the items that they needed to use. And once again, we don't have tennis here in Eldon, so this would have been a startup sport for us. So I kind of figured they needed everything that was asking because it was a startup sport. Girls volleyball, we've had that for years. It's one of our big money makers at Eldon. So I try to give them most everything they need. We also have boys volleyball now. So once again, those things would be across the board of being used at the same, well, sometimes at the same time or different times. The one thing I didn't do was the banners. I figure the booster club can do the banners. And knee pads, that's something that needs to be replaced every year. They had a total of $5,056, and originally were wanting $8,190. So, they got a big chunk of that. Most of this stuff that are their purchases, especially in volleyball, I tend to, I'd say every couple years we probably spend more money allocated towards new jerseys and uniforms. Bought travel bags last year for volleyball, so they didn't need to get those. So a lot of the stuff that I put on there and indicated was because we had just purchased it in the year or two before and was all still in good working condition. Okay, let's go on to boys soccer. They only are asking $2,587. They got everything because they weren't really asking too much. And boys soccer and girls soccer are going to be sharing a lot of the same items. Girls soccer had a much higher they were asking a lot more, mainly because they were asking for a $5,000 goal. I kind of 86 the goal, and we actually have goals here already that the PE class uses now. Those will be used until we can allocate enough money in the future to spend towards just brand new goals. Also, this is another sport we don't have here at Eldon currently, so that would be also once again a startup for us. But anyway, I think by sharing the two sports together, a lot of the materials and the only thing that really need to be separate would be the uniforms. So we go into boys basketball. That's one of our big money makers here at our school district. So they are asking for $6,361. I pretty much gave them everything they wanted because even when our team isn't doing very good, we still have pretty good sales and revenue, and we haven't done very good for the last 2 or 3 years. So anyway, we were still making money even with doing poorly as in that sport. So they going on cheerleading, they were asking a lot, $13,810. I allocated $4,919, and I thought that was a lot, really. Mainly it went to new cheerleading uniforms. They've been wearing the same ones here at our school district for about 4 years now. They need to be replaced, and that was a big chunk of it. That was about, that was pretty much it. That's what I spent most of the stuff. We already have mats. They've had them, and they're new. They were actually bought about 2 or 3 years ago as well. So we went on a mat buying spree here in Eldon several years ago. So a lot of our mats are fairly new. Softball, spent about $4,194. That was, I gave them everything they wanted because they weren't really asking that much, and it fell within that $4,000 to $5,000 range. Boys golf, boys golf here doesn't cost us much because we don't have to pay for anything here at Eldon. Our country club lets us our players play for free. They let us borrow a cart and everything. So really, it all went in mainly into buying golf balls and the striped polos for the team, which came to $1,589. Cross country, that's also a new sport to us. We've only had cross country about 5 years, maybe 4. Really, primarily what they were asking in their wish list was mainly new uniforms, and technically that's really what we needed here at Eldon as well, was just new uniforms, which came to $4,624. And it was pretty close to being near that $4,000 to $5,000. I mentioned earlier we do not have marching band does not come out of our athletic director's funds or sporting funds because it is the fine art and is funded through the band program, which gave me an extra surplus of $8,200, which made it easier to allocate that money to the other sports. Swimming, we don't have that here at Eldon, but once again, I acted like we did, and about $2,800 was allocated to that. A couple things I took off were the snorkels and the backpacks. They probably can do without the backpacks at least for another year or so. All right, so total of when it comes down to it, we came up to in the end We came up to about $2,063 surplus, and like I said, that was probably going to go into going towards a girls' soccer goal because it was $5,000. I figured if we could find one or stick with the ones we got right now and maybe find one that's maybe half of the price, but maybe not as good a quality, I would spend that $2,000 on the a new goal for the soccer. Well, this concludes my final budget. I was able to get everything covered. Most everybody got, I'd say, about 75% of what they were asking for, mainly because I was able to take that $8,000 from band and place it in other places. All right, thank you.